what an absolute jackpot of a velvet shank spot up here. All underneath this dying bark is lots of little clusters of velvet shanks or Flammulina velutipes. Let me show you. These handsome mushrooms are one of the best winter edibles, and they are hardy little things. They can withstand being frozen and thawed multiple times and still be in a pretty good condition to bang in the pot. Now, this mushroom has got a pretty long alias list. They go by the names of velvet foot, winter mushrooms, velvet stems, velvet shanks, golden needle mushrooms, and probably loads more that I've either forgotten about or I'm yet to come across. These little guys are awesome edible mushrooms and quite the survivalist too. They pop up during late autumn and chill out all throughout the winter months. Some say they have hints of butterscotch, and they definitely do have somewhat of a sweet, earthy flavour, which lends itself pretty nicely to both desserts and savoury dishes. I've also just spied a little patch of velvet shanks just down here on this dying log as well. How cute are these? So if you look closely at these velvet shanks, you can see that they've got a really glossy caramel coloured cap that gets a little bit lighter towards the cap edges. So let me pick this little cluster and show you. So you can see that the caps of the velvet shanks have got a very sticky, gelatinous kind of shiny coating to it. Velvet shanks have a gorgeous orange caramel coloured cap around 2 to 8 centimetres in diameter, ranging from glossy to matte depending on the age and the weather conditions as well. The tight clusters can sometimes distort the shapes of the cap, but they're generally convex and flatten as they mature. The caps are smooth and covered in a thin layer of slime, giving it a sort of gelatinous, slippery feel when fresh, becoming a bit more tacky as the mushroom dries. The colours deepen as the mushroom matures as well, and though they start off a bright orange colour, they can range from a deep orange to a chestnut brown. If you turn the mushroom over, you'll find these fairly crowded off-white to tan coloured gills, which are adnate, meaning that they're broadly attached to the stipe. If you place the cap gill side down on a piece of coloured paper, you'll see a creamy white spore print after a couple of hours. Velvet shanks get their name from the tiny white hairs that completely cover the stem, giving it a soft sort of velvety look. When young, these stipes start off the same colour as the caps, but eventually darken to a black colour. This colour change always happens from the base of the mushroom as it matures, giving it a sort of ombre effect before it eventually blackens. So velvet shanks are saprobic mushroom, which means they break down rotting wood, and they're slightly parasitic as well. You'll often find them on dead, dying or diseased trees, most often elm trees, so look in mixed or deciduous woodlands. Velvet shanks love to grow in clusters and can often be found in huge numbers. The preferred host is the elm tree, but you can also find them growing on oak, ash and beech. And don't forget to look up, because they can often be found growing high up on dead limbs and are definitely worth the climb. Sometimes velvet shanks will even make their home in buried, decomposing wood beneath the ground, and can sometimes seem as though they're growing straight from the earth. So this is a lovely little cluster of velvet shanks that I've just picked from this log down here, and they're a little bit past it, these ones, but they'll still be good for drying. As with many mushrooms, velvet shanks have lots of health benefits too, from anti-tumour properties to stimulating the immune system. They are an awesome source of protein and dietary fibre. They also contain various vitamins, including B vitamins such as thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, biotin and folate, all playing essential roles in energy metabolism, cell function and overall well-being. Velvet shanks also provide minerals and antioxidants, including potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, selenium, copper and ergothioneine, crucial for maintaining bone health, supporting the immune system and reducing oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. These are a great mushroom to find in the winter because they can survive freezing, like completely frozen and be thawed out, and they're absolutely fine. These are a really, really great mushroom to find all through the winter months, and you can often find them up until February as well. Even if you have never been foraging before, you may have already tried this mushroom, as they are almost genetically identical to their cultivated cousins, Flammulina filiformis, the enokitake or the enoki mushroom. Though the ones you see packaged up in stores can look wildly different from their more feral family members out there in the woods. When cultivated, they have a little white cap on top of a long, thin white stipe. The reason for this diverse morphology is pretty simple. Since enokitake are typically grown in jars in complete darkness, they want their spores to be airborne and not stuck underground, so the mushrooms stretch out until they find some sort of light. You can see here underneath this little bit of bark that the stems are much longer, thinner and paler than those exposed to more light and air over here. What's really cool about Flammulina velutipes, or velvet shanks, is that they actually exhibit a pretty unique behaviour. When the cap of a growing mushroom is cut off, the stipe stops growing. And this distinctive response isn't observed in all mushroom species. It hints at a pretty fascinating mechanism and suggests that the caps of Flammulina velutipes produce a substance, likely a hormone, which is then communicated to the stipe, directing it to whether or not it should continue growing. So what this means is that velvet shanks sense entrapment, say under a bark or inside a glass jar in a dark room, for example. These mushrooms can detect barriers to light and carbon dioxide levels, and in response they undergo a strategic shift which involves a redirection of energy away from cap expansion, colour development and spore production, and instead focusing on growing tall in search for cracks where light penetrates and CO2 diminishes. This results in their characteristic long, thin, pale form of the cultivated enokitake. Upon exposure to open air, the mushroom seamlessly reverts back to its natural form. The cap expands, the colour develops, and the stipe adopts its black and fuzzy texture. This intricate process ensures efficient energy allocation, prioritising spore production only when the environment supports successful spore dispersion into the air. So the next time you find some velvet shanks, peel back the nearby bark to see if you can find some of the cultivated lookalikes as well. When you're out hunting for velvet shanks, do tread carefully because there are a couple of sneaky lookalikes also lurking around in clusters on dead wood. The first one you want to learn about is the funeral bell, and true to its dramatic name, this mushroom is seriously toxic, packing amatoxins similar to the deadly destroying angel and death cap. It is absolutely imperative to learn the key identifying features that could possibly save you from an emergency liver transplant. If they are velvet shanks, then they will not have a ring on the stem, but don't get too excited just yet because that ring can also sometimes rub off, so don't go for that one detail alone. A spore print will help you rule out the deadly lookalike. It's brown for Galerina marginata and white for Flammulina velutipes. The sulphur tufts might also throw you a bit of a curveball from afar, but on closer inspection the olive gills and overall yellowy green vibe is a bit different from the lush caramel hue of the velvet shanks. Try not to let these toxic lookalikes put you off though, because these mushrooms have been cultivated since at least 800 AD, and they are well worth the time and patience it takes to learn the ones to avoid. That fuzzy ombre stipe, the slimy, orange caramel coloured cap, and the white spore print are your velvet shank markers. Just be 100% sure of identification before these guys make it onto your plate. And once you are certain, you can enjoy them by frying the caps in butter, tossing the chewy, woody stems into stocks or soups, or preserving the mushrooms until the next winter by drying or pickling.